Hello, this is Pastor John Dostal, and we're continuing to read this book, The Story. We're in chapter 8, which is entitled, A Few Good Men and Women. At the bottom of the page, you'll note the timeline that helps us to understand what the chapter will be about, or in this case, who the chapter will be about. It opens by telling us that Joshua had grown old and he had died at 110 years old, very similar to his predecessor Moses, who died at 120. But we begin the chapter by finding that Joshua has died. He is no longer leading the armies of Israel through a campaign in the land of Canaan, taking over the land, taking over the cities, taking the tribes, these tribes outside of Israel, these opposed tribes, out militarily. And now he's gone. And so there's a power vacuum that happens in Israel. Well, God raises up a few good men and a few good women. And in this case, we're going to read about Deborah and Gideon and Samson. Of course, Samson is fairly well known. We know who Samson was. Deborah is very interesting. She was a prophet, and we'll talk about her in just a moment. But if you look at page 104, you'll find in that first complete paragraph a summation of the unhealthy cycle that the nation, the congregation of Israel, kept falling into over and over again. And I'll read the paragraph. You can read along. This is page 104. Then the Lord raised up judges who saved them out of the hands of these raiders. Yet they would not listen to their judges, but prostituted themselves to other gods and worshipped them. They quickly turned from the ways of their ancestors who had been obedient to the Lord's commands. Whenever the Lord raised up a judge for them, he was with the judge, and saved them out of the hands of their enemies as long as the judge lived. For the Lord relented because of their groaning under those who oppressed and afflicted them. But when the judge died, the people returned to ways even more corrupt than those of their ancestors, following other gods and serving and worshiping them. They refused to give up their evil practices and stubborn ways. And this is just the history of the nation of Israel in the land of Canaan, that they would over and over go through these cycles. What was the cycle? They would follow the Lord. Then they would stop following the Lord, and they would be tempted by the gods of the people that were around them, these different tribes, the Midianites, the Amorites, the Hittites, all of these different tribes. Then they would start worshiping those gods, and of course, that's no good with God. And so he would allow Israel to be attacked and their armies to be attacked and defeated by these surrounding tribes. Then they would cry out to God. Then God would send a judge. The judge, in one way or another, would lead God's people to judgment, to victory. And then the people would have peace for a number of years, whether it be 10, 15, 20, or 40. And the first judge we're reading about is Deborah. It says, Now Deborah, a prophet, the wife of Lapidoth, on page 105, was leading Israel at the time. She held court under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites went up to her to have their disputes settled. So that's what a judge is for. A judge is there to settle disputes. And that's exactly what she was doing. She sent for Barak, son of Abinoam, from Kedesh in Naphtali, and said to him, The Lord, the God of Israel, commands you, go take with you 10,000 men of Naphtali and Zebulun and lead them up to Mount Tabor. I will lead Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, with his chariots and his troops to the Kishon River, and give him into your hands. Now Sisera was the commander under his king Jabin, which was another army, and they were opposed to Israel. So Deborah was told to call this person Barak and 10,000 troops to go fight against Sisera, the commander of the opposing army. Not only that, but God promises that Barak and the troops will have victory. This is a very interesting account because what ends up happening, Barak has some questions, isn't sure about what he's supposed to do, is not very secure as a leader, but God ends up giving him the victory that day. And Sisera, who was the leader of the opposing army, runs into a tent. And Deborah had told Barak, hey, listen, because you didn't believe, because you doubted, the victory won't be given into your hands. It'll be given to a woman. Well, the house was or the tent rather, was of Jael. And Jael, she was a righteous woman. And when the opposing army leader, Sisera, came to her, they were actually in neighborly support of one another. That is, her tribe and that tribe was in support of each other. And so she invited Sisera in. Sisera falls asleep. She takes a tent peg and a hammer and drives the peg right through his head. So Sisera was delivered to Barak, the leader of Israel's armies, by the woman Jael, just as Deborah had prophesied, had told it. Then we have Gideon. And in the time of Gideon, he is called also to have victory. And his victory isn't with a lot of people. He starts off with a large amount of troops, and then God keeps paring them down. He gets them down to 300, and they're lapping the water like dogs with their tongues, not bringing the water up to their mouth, but going down with their faces into the water. And then God miraculously has victory over the Midianites through Gideon with only 300 people. It was an amazing event, one that actually parallels the victory of Jericho, where it was in the yelling and the visual effects, if you will, of torches and all of that, the trumpets that caused confusion in the Midianite camp, and that was the end for them. And finally, we're told about the account of Samson. And Samson was a Nazirite. He was his mom was told not to grow his hair out. She had been barren, and then God promised and gave her a son, and her son became a great leader. His name was Samson, of course. He became a judge. And he fought the Philistines. Whereas Gideon fought the Midianites, he fought the Philistines, and was a pretty bright guy for the most part, but was constantly falling into the arms of women. And eventually he fell into the arms of Delilah. And really a lot of this episode focuses on his relationship with Delilah, and how she's always constantly trying to get her people, that is because she was a Philistine, she's trying to get the Philistines to be able to capture Samson and hold him, and eventually maybe kill him, because he had killed so many Philistines. At any rate, because of his weakness towards Delilah, he finally tells her the truth about, if you cut my hair, then I become weak and anyone can take me. And that's just what they did. And then they take out his eyes and they put him, they chain him to columns in a building. And he asks for strength for one more time to defeat the Philistines. And he's able to do that. He says, "Sovereign Lord, remember me, please, God, strengthen me just once more." and let me, with one blow, get revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes. And so that's exactly what happened. He pushed with all his might, and down came the temple on the rulers and all the people in it. Thus he killed many more than when he died than while he lived. Interesting. He had victory over many more in his death than in his life. That's true for Jesus too. Jesus had complete and total victory over sin, death, and the devil. And he was only one man. He wasn't Gideon's 300, which was a very small number. He wasn't Jael armed with a tent peg and a hammer. He was Jesus, who was nailed with a nail through his wrists and his feet. Those nails were hammered in on the cross. You see that even the judges, even their accounts, and those who had victory over the enemies of Israel point to Jesus, who had victory over the greatest enemies of mankind, sin, death, and the devil. Jesus has had victory for you too. He has died to give you life and to rescue you and have victory over your sin and death and the devil for you. And he gives you this victory even today in his word. Thanks be to God. Amen.